this hour. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has landed in Israel. He is scheduled to meet Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later on Thursday. His visit to Israel is the latest by a senior US official aimed at keeping the fragile truce deal between Israel and Hamas alive after 2 years of devastating war that has upended the Middle East. Before departing, he spoke on the West Bank annexation bill put forward in the Knesset. While speaking, Vice President J.D. Vance was also in Israel recently. He said that a flurry of recent visits to Israel by top American officials was intended to oversee the fragile ceasefire deal in Gaza. Now joining me on the telecast is my colleague, correspondent Maresha Barve. Thank you for joining, Maresha. Now, Maresha, what can we expect from Rubio's meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as it comes at a rather crucial stage in the Gaza peace plan or the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas?
Well, Rema, like you very rightly mentioned, that it has come at rather a very crucial time. US has been and has played rather a very important role in brokering this peace deal between both Israel and Hamas. Now, let's not forget that this meeting also does come amid the violation of ceasefire by Israel, and the phase 1 of ceasefire. Just to give you and the audience a little bit more context into this meeting that has happened that is happening between Rubio landing in Israel. Well, the phase 1 of ceasefire took place roughly 2 weeks back, and now we are looking at more of a resolution-driven aspect. Talks in Israel with Vance and Rubio come really amid the fact that US has played a major role in brokering peace. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has criticized the move of Israel's parliament towards the annexation of the West Bank, and very honestly, even Vice President J.D. Vance has doubled down on the annexation of the West Bank, because that would lead to a breach in ceasefire, which would definitely, as we are seeing, would hamper peace. Now, 2 years of war have led in mass destruction, and obviously we do not wish to see any of it anymore, or any more violation of peace. Hence, these talks are rather more important. Now, the bill that was put forward by the Knesset was allowing or wanted to allow the annexation of the West Bank, which both J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio have fairly criticized. The US does not support or stand in favor of the annexation of the West Bank, simply because it could hamper peace in this. Now we're looking at the second phase of the peace plan that would involve in settling an interim government in Gaza. It would be deploying an international task force and stabilization force to make sure and ensure the peace in the strip. Also, the withdrawal of Israeli troops and the disarmament of Hamas is in focus. Both Rubio and Vance have actually echoed, and they do agree, and they stand firm on the fact that they do not want the annexation of the West Bank. This is an idea that the US strongly supports. Now, of course, Rubio also did mention that they would like to see the Palestinian task force to be more efficient, to rather do a great job, and to be trained and equipped in making sure and stabilizing peace in both the regions. We are looking forward for more resolution towards this conflict as we go ahead, and as we are closely monitoring Rubio and J.D. Vance's visit in Israel.
Right, Maresha, please stay with us as we have more news updates from Middle East. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has made a controversial statement when he said that he wouldn't agree to a normalization of agreement with Saudi Arabia if it meant the establishment of a Palestinian state, disparagingly saying the Saudis could keep riding camels. Smotrich was denounced by several opposition leaders who accused him of ignorance and causing harm, said he did not represent Israel and demanded he apologize. His comments came following Wednesday's vote in the Knesset to pass a bill in its preliminary reading that would apply Israeli sovereignty to West Bank settlement, despite opposition from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Likud party. However, the finance minister Smotrich has expressed regret over his statement, calling it unfortunate. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has predicted that Israel and Saudi Arabia will normalize their relations by the end of this year. This was published in an interview today. He emphasized that Saudi Arabia is likely to take the lead in this process, following the resolution of the Gaza and the ongoing Iran issues. Donald Trump also commented on the leadership vacuum in the Palestinian Authority, suggesting that Mahmoud Abbas is no longer seen as the true leader of the Palestinians, and this comes amid the ongoing ceasefire and the push for returning to normalcy in Gaza. Additionally, Trump revealed that he is considering the release of Palestinian leader Marwan Barghouti, whose case has become a point of discussion. The World Health Organization has warned that the humanitarian situation in Gaza remains catastrophic despite the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. The WHO chief, Tedros, has expressed concern over the insufficient aid entering the region, noting that while the flow of trucks has increased over time ever since the announcement of the ceasefire, it's still only a fraction of what needed to combat the hunger and health crisis in Gaza. He further highlighted the severe damage to Gaza's healthcare system, with most hospitals either damaged or non-functional, and the ongoing shortage of essential medical supplies. Tedros also emphasized that the total cost to rebuild Gaza's health system is estimated at $7 billion. Now, staying in the Middle East, Israeli military launched a series of strikes killing 2 people in eastern Lebanon on Thursday, according to the Lebanon's official national news agency. Israeli warplanes launched a series of violent strikes on the eastern mountain range in the Bekaa region near the border with Syria. Now, of course, Israel had leveled up its attacks on Lebanon. While there's a ceasefire with Gaza, the strikes in Lebanon continue. Israel has repeatedly bombed Lebanon despite a November ceasefire that brought an end to the more than a year of hostilities within the militant group of Hezbollah. Meanwhile, under US pressure and fearing an escalation of Israeli strikes, the Lebanese government has moved to begin disarming Hezbollah as a plan which the militant movement and its allies oppose strongly. Now, bringing some news updates from Russia, the Russian diplomat Maria Zakharova has warned that some NATO member states would lift their self-imposed restrictions on the nuclear weapons deployment in the future. She has criticized NATO's annual Steadfast Noon exercise, where NATO nations train with US nuclear weapons, calling it deeply Zakharova the US for nuclear deployment, claiming it disregards the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The exercise, involving 2,000 troops and aircraft from 14 NATO countries, is a long-planned training activity aimed at maintaining nuclear readiness and transparency in the region. Russia, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has responded to the recent US sanctions imposed on Russia, labeling them as an unfriendly act that only worsens Russian-American relations. Putin stressed that no self-respecting country would yield to pressure from foreign powers, highlighting Russia's stance on its resilience. Despite the sanctions, Putin remained confident that they would significantly affect Russia's economy, which he claimed is robust enough to withstand such measures. And this comes amid United States' constant push for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Furthermore, he's even criticized the notion of using sanctions as a tool of foreign policy, asserting that such actions undermine the potential for constructive dialogue between the two nations. While Putin also emphasized the importance of diplomatic dialogue, noting that direct communication is always more effective than conflict. Now, updates coming in from Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has issued a statement informing that Ukraine has domestically developed a long-range missile. Zelensky has also announced that the missile has the capability to reach 3,000 kilometers. This proves Ukraine will have a deep strike capability, allowing them to hit the inner regions of Russia for a long time. Ukraine has been seeking long-range weapons systems and stronger air defenses to thwart Russian attacks. However, the United States has continuously refrained from providing long-range weapons. With the domestically developed weapon, Ukraine may now escalate the war in Russia. President Zelensky has also hailed the EU's decision regarding the use of frozen Russian assets to now finance 140 billion euro loan to Ukraine. Let's in fact listen in to what Ukrainian President Zelensky had to say.
We are today can be closely to this great decision to use frozen assets in one or another way. For today, it doesn't matter, and it's early to speak what we will allow or will not. The main thing that today, I hope, God bless, that now there is, they have meeting and the EU leaders, and I hope that they will make political decision, positive decision, in one or another way to help Ukraine with funds, yes, basing on frozen assets.
Breaking news coming in from Pakistan. The Federal Cabinet of Pakistan has approved a ban on Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan. According to the sources, the decision was taken during a meeting chaired by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, directing the Interior Ministry to complete the legal formalities. The move follows a recommendation from the Punjab government, which cited that TLP's involvement in the sectarian violence, hate speech and damage to public property during protests. The ban has been proposed under Section 11(8) B of the Anti-Terrorism Act based on the reports detailing the groups of extremist activities and violent conduct. Now joining me on the telecast is Maresha Barve, my colleague and correspondent. Maresha, thank you so much for joining us. While, of course, this comes big amid the constant call for actions from Pakistan on anti-terrorism. What do you say? Will banning Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan will really help control the hate speech, violent activities and protests in Pakistan, considering their history?
Well, Rema, to answer this question, it's important to note that Tehreek-e-Labbaik has had a history of hate speech and violence And just by banning it, one cannot really guarantee or ensure that that there would be no violence in the future, or there's no guarantee to steadfast peace. We have seen Tariq al-Bek use street violence, religious bigotry, riot and demolition of infrastructure, and street violence as their modus operandi. Now, considering all of this and their past history, one can really not ensure steadfast peace in Pakistan. Now, when one actually thinks about the situation, it can only point down to the instability that Pakistan as a nation has seen over the last few years. Now, the prominence was the max in the latest prominence that you have seen of the Tariq al-Bek was very recently in 2025 related to pro-Gaza protests after the ceasefire was actually announced. Now, there are very less chances that the ban that has been imposed would actually lead to peace, because it is said that TLP, that is the Tariq al-Bek, has been previously banned back in 2021 by the then government, of course. However, the ban was lifted after 6 months when the condition was put forward that the group would refrain in any sort of violence or public disorder. Now, the current ban that has been imposed on TLP is because they have violated this peace in the first place. Even after assuring and reassuring the government that they would be controlled and that they would take care of public order. Now, senior officials from, like you mentioned, from the Punjab government also participated in this meet with that was chaired by the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif via a video link. It was a virtual meet that also took place. The briefing obviously did highlight the organization's disruptive actions in disrupting public order, in inciting violence, in harming civilians and their lives. The cabinet was further informed that the past protests, rallies and demonstrations by the Tariq al-Bek would result in death of security personnel and also harm the lives of civilians. Now, after reviewing the details and considering all odds against this group, the Punjab government's recommendations, the federal cabinet unanimously concluded that TLP is actively involved in something as serious as terrorism and violent activities. Now, considering all of this and its previous history with inciting violence and creating disruption in public order, this ban that has been put across, we don't know, or we cannot guarantee peace in Pakistan regardless of this ban, because time and time again we have seen Tariq al-Bek actually violate peace even after assuring that they would stick to steadfast peace. So, Rema, with that, we hope for peace. We actually do hope that this ban would further ease the situation of violence in Pakistan and actually in the future see a more resolution in this country.
Thank you for joining, Maresha. Now, more breaking news coming in from Brazil. Brazilian President Lula da Silva has confirmed that he will run for a 4th term in office in the country's 2026 elections. He made that statement at a joint press conference with his Indonesian counterpart Prabowo Subianto in Jakarta. Lula served as president for 2 terms between 2003 and 2010. However, the man who rose from poverty to become an icon of the Latin American left had a dramatic fall from grace when he was imprisoned for corruption in 2018. The controversial case was overturned and Lula made a spectacular comeback in a bitter 2022 election that deeply divided Brazil with a narrow victory of over incumbent Jair Bolsonaro. That election sparked a political crisis that still resonates today. Bolsonaro was sentenced to 27 years in prison for a botched coup attempt in the wake of his election loss. Now, Lula's election bid post-Bolsonaro's conviction is significant. Let's in fact listen in to what Brazilian president had to say about his re-election.
Eu quero lhe dizer que eu vou completar 80 anos, mas pode ter certeza que eu estou com a mesma energia de quando eu tinha 30 anos de idade. E vou disputar um quarto mandato no Brasil. Vou disputar um quarto mandato no Brasil. Então,
now we shift our focus to Nigeria. The military says that it has killed at least 50 jihadists during a series of intense battles in the country's troubled northeast and repelled multiple coordinated attacks on military locations across Borno and your states by unknown militants. In the early hours of Thursday, troops aided by fighter jets engaged insurgents who had launched coordinated attacks on bases in the towns of Dekwa, Mafa and Gajibo in the Borno state, as well as in Katario in neighboring Yobe state. Military spokesperson said in a statement. While the military did not name the faction involved in the initial attack, intelligence sources believe Islamic State West Africa province fighters were behind this assault. The region has been the epicenter of Nigeria's almost 16-year-long conflict with Boko Haram and ISWAP.